Hey, this is Dave Kirby. Due to a heavy travel schedule and meetings this week, we're going to run a best of series here on the One Simple Thing podcast. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back next week with brand new episodes. We just had the motherboard go out on our heating unit in our house. Weird things started happening. Sometimes it'd go on, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes if you messed around with the thermostat a little bit, you could get it to go on for a while. Then it'd be okay for a while. The next thing you know, it's not working. Finally, it just went out altogether. And we had to come out and replace the motherboard in the heating unit. I kind of like to think of our brain like the motherboard of our body, but not just our body, but the essence of who we are, right? It's our personality. It's our feelings and emotions, all of it locked up inside that brain. And when it's not working right, it can cause all sorts of glitches in the system, physically, emotionally, whatever. Author Scott Halford is here today on the show. He's talking about more ways we can improve the health of our brain and what that means to our overall health and productivity. We're focusing in specifically today on the importance of certain foods and exercise. So stay tuned to the One Simple Thing podcast.
It's time to build a better business by building a better you. This is One Simple Thing.
Welcome to the show. Dave Kirby with you as we again dive into the fascinating world of our brains with my guest, Scott Halford. His book is called Activate Your Brain, How Understanding Your Brain Can Improve Your Work and Your Life. It's available via the banner ad when you go to OneSimpleThingOnline.com. Would you also do me a favor while you're there at the website? In the top menu, you'll see a choice for Support the Show. If you click on that, it takes you to a page that has a link on it where you can leave us a rating review in iTunes. Those things are so important. If you've enjoyed the show and you'd like to know how you can give back, that's the way right there. Just go to iTunes, rate and review. It helps us rise up the charts and helps other people find the show as well. Again, just go to OneSimpleThingOnline.com and click on Support the Show. All right, let's bring Scott in. He's an author and Emmy Award-winning writer and producer. He's advisor to Fortune 500 executive teams and has also been inducted to the National Speakers Hall of Fame. Again, his book is called Activate Your Brain. Scott, have really enjoyed it. Welcome back here to the One Simple Thing podcast.
Excellent. It's great to be here, Dave.
Yeah, there's a chapter in your book on food and exercise, and I love the title of it, Quality In, Quality Out. Is it really that simple? When we put quality in our body, we get quality output?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when you think about how the brain, what the brain eats, basically, our body manufactures none of what the brain needs to operate well every day. So we have to look at what we're putting in. I look at all the holes in our head and, what you see on TV, what you feed yourself in terms of, what you hear, the people you hang out with, that has to do with the quality of your brain, positivity, negativity. And then what you smell, for sure, nice scents, bad scents, pollution, those things all have to do with the quality of our brain. And then finally, what you ingest, what you eat and drink are really critically important. And, if you're not eating something that your brain really likes to operate, the cells and the neurons like to operate on, and you're feeding it with kind of man-made stuff, the quality of your thinking and the operation of your brain are going to really be compromised.
I want to go back to something you just said because it just was like a slap in the face. Our body does not produce any of the things that are necessary for our brain to function properly?
That's right. Yeah. So we would wither away if we didn't eat or drink. Our brains would. So I always like to think about, if you watch a movie and you see the character out in the middle of the desert and they're seeing mirages and things. That's the brain, and they're starving and they're dying of thirst. That's the brain basically trying to operate while it doesn't have any food, basically. And pretty soon, what it will do is just shut down. It'll shut down your organs because the brain basically knows that it's the captain of the ship, and it says, all right, well, while you're trying to survive, if you're not feeding me right, I'm going to shut down this organ, or I'm going to store fat, or I am going to preserve glucose. And it all leads to, all kinds of eating disorders, and leads to gaining weight, as well as, just losing weight improperly, and energy levels get all switched around if your brain is not being taken care of on a moment-by-moment basis.
So, and I know there's danger in overgeneralizing or whatever, but if I'm having health problems, I Is it an outgrowth maybe of the fact that my brain isn't healthy? I mean, if my body is not operating properly, is that because I haven't been feeding my brain properly?
Yeah, I think your body and your brain are obviously inextricably linked, and there's research that just came out, I think, last week that basically said that we can point to just about every single cancer as a man-made type of thing. And your brain operates your immune system, and your immune system is something that is very expensive to operate. Well, if you're in fight or flight all day long, meaning that you're constantly stressed out and you're running from the bear that you think is in the room, your boss, the deadline, the pressure of hitting quotas, all the things that we run from all day long, your brain is in this fight or flight mode. Well, what it does is it turns off your immune system because that's so costly to operate. Why do I need you to pay attention to your sniffles when you're running from a bear? Run from the bear. So I'm going to turn off the immune system, and you probably have experienced this when you're running really fast. You're in you're kind of a high stress situation, and then when you finally get to have relief from it, you get sick. Well, it's because your immune system turns back on it, and the inflammatory properties of it go and attack any kind of virus or any other kind of issue that you've got going on that you was not paying attention to while the immune system was compromised, because the brain is trying to pay attention to the stressors that we think are important. So yeah, it's it really is all and very, very linked. I think people are cynical about it because they say, well, I have cancer or I have this disease and I'm not thinking my way into well-being. It's not that simple. But I do think that we are in a long-term kind of state. We are responsible for what's going to happen. I mean, there's an adage in neuroscience that says if you want to know how your brain's going to be when you're 70, look at how you treat it when you're 20.
Mm. Well, in light of that, I think a lot of us, we eat bad foods or whatever. We think the biggest consequence is I'm going to put a couple of pounds on around the waist or whatever. But these things that I'm doing that are unhealthy, they have way more impact than I've even ever considered, don't they?
They do. Well, they do. And, I'm not a big proponent, and I'm certainly not a dietitian, but I do understand what the different foods do to our brains. I like a candy bar every once in a while. I certainly like a steak and a hamburger. But pretty much, the idea is 80% of things that are grown in nature, fruits and vegetables, that should be about 80% of your diet. The other 20% of the proteins that you put in your mouth, proteins and dairy kinds of things, you should pay attention to the amount of animal fat that's in them. Anything that can turn hard outside your body is going to do the same thing inside of your brain and your heart. So you want to pay attention. And again, if you want a steak, great. You just don't eat it every day. You want to, it's all things moderation.
Yeah.
And, it's really paying attention to understanding that most of what we have created ourselves is not very good to put in our mouths.
That's kind of the rule that I've thought of a lot of times. It's like, we want to know what to eat. Just eat what God made, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So you talk about in the book, and I'd like to talk about it a little bit, is the importance of breathing in the health of our brain.
Yeah. Well, so when you look at, oxygenation is of course critical for the brain. So the brain needs oxygen, glucose, oil, water to operate. And breathing to reset the stress response, it's been discovered that all you have to do is take literally 3 large breaths like that in a row, and it literally will reset the stress response in your brain, tames down the cortisol. So if you're going to go do a big presentation, take 3 big breaths. Obviously, don't do it in front of your audience. It'd be kind of weird. But we do that all day long when we sigh, when we go, we're basically, our brain's saying, you need to reset your stress response. A telltale sign for me is if I'm doing a lot of that, it means I should probably go offline for a moment and pay attention to that. So breathing is really important, and we know that cardiovascular health is also kind of brain health at the same time. The single most important thing you can do for your brain is cardiovascular exercise. There's nothing that comes even close. There was a woman named Laura Karsten. I've got her name wrong probably. She wrote a book on the aging brain, and basically what she says is if we could put into a pill everything that exercise does for the brain, it would outsell Viagra. And Viagra, of course, is the all-time world's best seller of drugs. But we can't. So what we have to do is we have to get our 30 minutes of exercise, 20 to 30 minutes of something faster than a walk every single day, because that breathing helps to basically act like pipe cleaners to the capillaries. It causes the neurons to build. It allows the blood to flow. Moves things through our systems. Really critically important to have happen every day.
So the two takeaways I have so far in this conversation are: pay attention to what's going in all the holes in our head, right? Eyes, nose, ears, mouth.
Yep.
And get 20 to 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise every day.
Every day. And it's not it's not that you have to go out and get on a treadmill or run, but something faster than a walk. It's got to be pretty intentional. Take the stairs. I keep a Fitbit in my pocket, or anything that counts steps is really important, so that you get what you pay attention to. And if you're looking at a Fitbit or some other kind of counter, you're going to take more steps, and that's what you want to do. Is at least 10,000 is what we're looking at to kind of keep you from being sedentary. And again, this goes way beyond just whatever size my waistline is. Yes. These things are so important on a much higher level. The health of our brain, which then, of course, impacts the health of all our organs and everything else in our body. Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at, when our brain, that human part of our brain came online, it came online when we were walking 30 miles a day as nomads, and we don't do that anymore. But the brain is still wants that exercise, and that's what will, kind of keep it ticking. I read a book a while back, and the author basically was making the case that you're not fat because you eat too much. You're fat because your brain chemistry is in flight or fight mode all day long. It's that cortisol injection of that stress that's causing you to overeat. It's causing your body to store energy and fat, etc. And the best thing you can do to lose weight is to get your brain healthy and get off that constant stress response. Yeah, absolutely. Because stressor hormone, again, it's dumping glucose into your system, and it screws with your insulin reuptake, which, you're just not storing sugars properly because your brain's constantly thinking it needs to be fed sugar. And basically your brain, while you're going throughout the day, kind of a quick tip for people is, if you want your brain to be available, you need to feed it about every hour and a half to 2 hours, just a handful of nuts or a handful of some complex carbohydrate, something that comes about in nature. You might not feel hungry, but your brain is spending this glucose all day long. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of it. I notice here on your recommended action for today was to eat an apple. Yeah, the apple is kind of the quintessential brain food. It's very high in fructose. It's very high in fiber. But it also has something else. So that's all going to kind of focus us, and it's going to feel really great. But the other thing it has is an amino acid called choline, and choline is the amino acid that allows the left brain to talk to the right brain. It causes synaptic firing between the hemispheres. And so when you eat an apple, it literally will wake up your brain more quickly than caffeine. And so, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you got that big meeting, go bite into an apple. If you really want a nice uptick and kind of a slow drip of glucose into your brain, an apple with a slice of cheese. The dairy moderates that uptick of the complex carbohydrates. Those two things are perfect for a nice drip of complex carbohydrate to the brain. Excellent, man. What good advice. Scott, all I can say is wow. The information we've had on this episode and the previous three, life-changing kind of stuff. So I'm so grateful you said yes to being on this show. We're going to tell everybody about your book here in just a second. But again, just thank you for being here. You're welcome. It's my privilege to be here. It's really cool to learn some of these little tricks or hacks that we can use to boost our brain, especially when we need it most, right? And I really appreciate Scott Halford being on the show. Again, his book is called Activate Your Brain, and it's available via a banner ad on our website. Just go to onesimplethingonline.com. On the right-hand side of the page, you'll see the banner ad for Scott Halford. You can click on that and pick up a copy of his book. While you're there at the website as well, hope you'll sign up for our mailing list. Got a freebie for you. It's called Belief Replacement Therapy. It's a cheat sheet that will help you identify limiting beliefs in your life and then replace them with something more positive.
It's something that's going to enable instead of limit you. So it's absolutely free. The PDF will come your way when you sign up for the mailing list. Again, OneSimpleThingOnline.com. That's it for today. I'm Dave Kirby. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time here on the One Simple Thing podcast.